Head coach Claude Julien will be joining the St. Louis Blues as an assistant coach. Celtics still on the clock. Sports Hub headlines brought to you by Awaken 180. Don't put off losing weight this summer. Reach your goal during the easiest season for weight loss. Awaken 180, the official weight loss program of summer. I'm Mark Dondero for Boston's Home for Sports. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Boston's best sports talk. There's an app for that. Download the Sports Hub app for loads of stuff. Absolutely free. Connect with the shows, get podcasts, and more. Get it where you get your apps. Or at 985sportshub.com. Now,
you have dog crap in your system.
This is the Baseball Hour with Tony Maz.
They did nothing this offseason.
Brought to you by Bigelow Tea, Corona, Gravely Zero Turn Lawnmowers, Jackson Lumber, Team Impact, Blue Moon Belgian White, and FindMassMoney.gov. On 98.5 The Sports Hub.
I can walk you through the trading deadline the way I see it, right? Like, there's three ways you can go, right? You buy, you sell, you stay put, and when you stay put, well, there's going to be teams that they added, right? And they're going to be better than you. It's not that your team was a bad team, but the other ones around you got better. And when you 1 game back, 2 games back, yeah, we played well until Jaron got hurt last year and cost us, right? But that was it. We didn't have more, right? And we'll see what happens in a month and a half. We just got to keep playing better baseball. And I know we've been talking about the wild card and all that stuff. Let's get greedy. There's team ahead of us that they're not playing good baseball, and I know probably one of them is only for 5 days, but there's more out there. And I think this brand of baseball, we can maintain the way we're playing. And, let's not settle for the third wild card. Let's go higher and see where the season takes us.
That is my manager. What a boss. What a boss. Alex Cora. I said earlier, he took his flag, he put it in the ground, and he staked his territory. He claimed it for himself. That is undeniably a warning shot at management to invest in this team. That is him absolutely holding his ground and saying, we need to get better, we deserve to get better, we should get better, and he is right. That's where we start tonight on the Baseball Hour with McCarthy. And for Maz will be heavy calls, an opportunity to talk Red Sox, because I think a lot of you do want to talk Red Sox. I think the Red Sox are a really compelling story right now. They've been a compelling story on the baseball field for the last few weeks, but they just got even more interesting yesterday with Cora taking his shot. That is Babe Ruth pointing to the stands in the 1932 World Series. He is calling his shot right there and then. He's saying, I believe in this team. We should invest in this team. Now the question is, will they? I can make the arguments as to why they should. I will make the arguments as to why they should. We all know it probably won't make a damn bit of difference with this ownership group and the way they want to approach things. And Craig Breslow had comments today that we'll get into that certainly would not indicate that he is fully committed to the idea of adding to this team, but he should be. He absolutely should be, and Alex Cora made that clear yesterday. This is some good drama. This is some good eating for us. How can you not like it as a baseball fan? If you're interested in the sport, drama is good. Conflict, controversy, as somebody would say. Controversy. Can they sustain this play? Is Alex Cora right in everything he just said? Should they get greedy? That's my ask to you, my question to you at 617-779-0985. Not only do I think Cora, called his shot yesterday and sent a warning shot to management, I think he was totally right in everything he said too. I believe this Red Sox team can sustain this. He said that yesterday. I think we can maintain this. I agree with that. They're not a perfect team. Far from it. They make a lot of mistakes. They're going to have some ugly nights. Tuesday night, if you watch that game, ugly game. Couldn't field the ball. They have nights like that. But they aren't making enough of those mistakes to consistently sink themselves. They're learning. They're growing. And that's my takeaway with this team, and I think it should be your takeaway too, and I think it's Alex Cora's takeaway. I think he believes everything he said yesterday. That wasn't just saying it to say it. That wasn't just saying it to apply pressure on management and ownership because it makes him look better. He was saying it because he believes it, and he should believe this. This Red Sox team is young. They can run, and as a result, they can score, which I did not see coming. Totally wrong, hand up. I did not see this coming from this group, but they're starting to put it together. I don't think this is some type of aberration. I don't. Because the nerds and Craig Breslow would tell you that the larger sample size is that this team is 500. They've been a 500 team for the majority of the year, and to not overreact to what you've seen in the last 2-3 weeks a month. To not do that, because the larger sample size means more in baseball. The larger sample size means more in math. And that's what it's coming down to. Math. It's math versus feel. And I know we do a lot of that. I know like every single Red Sox discussion is about math versus feel and human emotions versus the computers. But it really is true. It really is true. Because the nerds are going to argue and the analysts are going to argue that this team is a 500 baseball club, maybe a little bit under, because that's what the larger sample size says. The smaller sample size of the last 3 weeks, or going back to whenever the Phillies series was, is that this team is better than a 500 ball club. The analyst would say the larger sample size means more. I think the numbers are wrong. I think they're wrong in this scenario. Because as a human being, I can look at this and I can say, well, what means more? What numbers are more important? Let's weigh the numbers. And in weighing the numbers, I believe that the small sample size with the Red Sox recently is actually more indicative of things to come. Because I think what you're seeing is a team that's growing, and they're learning, and they're getting better. And that's what these last 3 weeks represent to me as a Red Sox fan. And if you've listened to me in recent years, you know I generally don't buy in on this stuff. I generally am a large sample size guy. I was the first to poo-poo everything last year. I was the first to poo-poo everything 2 years ago. I think it's different. I think it's different with this team. It's the young guys who are figuring out how to play at the big league level. They're making fewer and fewer mistakes every single night. They're not the best team in the league, but they're young and they're exciting. And I think they're ready to win enough to make the playoffs in baseball in 2024. Because here's the point before we get to you. Baseball is a game that is played by human beings. And sometimes those human beings, when they're young, they're fresh, they're just getting to the big leagues, aren't very good at their job. I would say that about Jarren Duran. I would say that about David Hamilton. I'd say that about Tanner Houck. I'd say that about a lot of these guys. Cutter Crawford. The core of this team is starting to get a little bit better. Things are starting to happen. Things are starting to come together for them a little bit. That's why the small sample size of the last 3 weeks, I don't think it's an aberration. I don't think it's a mistake. I see a baseball team with my own two eyes that's playing better, more inspiring, and a fun brand of baseball. Don't tell me that's not worth investing in. And you know who believes in it? Alex Cora. Above all else, Alex Cora believes in it. To you, early and often tonight at 617-779-0985. Let's go to Ray and Revere, first up on the Baseball Hour. Hey, Ray.
Hey, man, and listen, I'm with you. I'm so glad Cora spoke up and called these guys out, because the last two seasons, they went on runs in June. I think they won 8 games 2 years ago, and I think they won like 9 out of 10 last year. It's almost the exact same scenario. And in neither of those prior instances did ownership step up and help them, and they just faded. So I kind of felt like going into this season, the front office was trying to unload every possible player. I think they would have dumped Jansen at the beginning of the season if they could have. So I think it's a tough spot for ownership. I mean, John Henry has to type out his emails and answer questions in that way because he doesn't want to be put on the spot. I don't know what's going to change. I really don't think, because I haven't heard from John Henry. We're not hearing regularly from the front office. We used to actually hear from Larry Lucchino every week. These guys just hide from the fan base, and they have a persecution complex about our sense of entitlement.
You know, the only thing that I would hope would change things, Ray, is that somebody over there on Jersey Street, from a business perspective, because it's not going to be from, any other type of perspective, says, guys, we really do need to go to the playoffs. We need to get fans back to the ballpark. We're going to make more money in August and September if we add at the deadline. Somebody's going to need to sell them on the business side of things. Because right now, the business, I mean, there's no way the business of the Red Sox was as good entering the year as they possibly wanted it to be. So that's the hope, is that somebody over there recognizes they desperately need to get back to the playoffs because they need to make you believe. You know, let's take Alex Cora out of this for a second. Let's take the team out of this for a second. And not that we should, because it's the most important thing. Don't you want to believe as a Red Sox fan? Or maybe as somebody who doesn't care about the Red Sox as much anymore, or you're so frustrated with the Red Sox based on the way they've handled things since really 2018. Don't you want to have a reason to believe? Don't you want to go to the ballpark in August and September and watch a team try to make the playoffs? I was there in 2021. It was fun. Didn't mean I believed totally in the direction of the franchise. I didn't believe in ownership. I didn't believe in Chaim Bloom. I didn't believe in a lot of things there. But I believed in the product they were putting on the field at the time, which was fun, exciting, and competitive. Because that's why you're a baseball fan. That's why we watch sports. You want to win. It's not about the math. It's about trying to win. And I hope somebody over there, please, somebody outside of Alex Cora, recognizes that. You need to invest in this team for the team, but you need to invest in this team for the fan base as well. Cliff in Weymouth. Hey, Cliff.
Hey, Matt, love when you're on. It's you and Tony are the two best guys on the, suited for this show.
Thanks, man.
So you're welcome. So I run a sales team, and you can look at anybody's resume and see that they're good, and that's what these guys are doing in their stats or their resume. But the things that you can't teach and you can't quantify are drive, desire, things like that, heart. And you've got to look at it both ways. And if you don't do that, you're going to end up managing by money only, stats only, resume only, and deal with it, get a mediocre team. Is that going to, if Breslow doesn't make any moves, is he going to commit career suicide? Who's going to hire the guy? He's not going to do anything.
Well, Cliff, I mean, nobody wanted to hire, everybody else who, potentially the Red Sox were interested in didn't want the job. Nobody was hiring Craig Breslow as their head of baseball operations this past offseason anyway. I don't think he's putting his, career at risk by not making a move. He came in with a plan. Ownership probably agrees with it. And they're moving forward with that plan. I just think eventually you need to wake up and you say, this is different. The caller said they tried to trade Kenley Jansen in spring training. I wanted to trade Kenley Jansen in spring training. I wanted them to pick a path. I was all for them stripping the team down over the winter when it became apparent that they weren't going to spend the money on it and weren't interested enough in improving. Like this whole middling thing. Hate it. I wanted them to trade Jansen. I wanted them to trade Martin. I wanted them to strip the thing down. But eventually you have to look at the scoreboard and say, you're in the playoffs. The scoreboard is the only thing that should matter here, not the math. Not the odds, especially when I think the odds are wrong. Let's get to Craig Breslow's comments. He certainly doesn't sound like somebody who is too interested in adding to this team at the deadline because of the odds, because of the data-determined probability. Let me just say that again. The data-determined probability, Professor Frink. It's why they might not add to this team. I think the data's wrong, though. And I'll explain why next. It's McCarthy in from Az in the Baseball Hour. We got one open phone line. Grab it. 617-779-0985.
What are you starting to look at?
Yeah, I think we're currently still evaluating. We may have been having a very different conversation 2 or 3 weeks ago, but it's a credit to these guys who have shown up and played and shown a ton of resiliency, battling injuries, overcoming lengthy, trips on the IL, and it's a credit to these guys. Obviously, we have to figure out what lane there is to pick come the deadline, but I think there are a ton of Alex talks all the time about the great vibes around the team, and I think we're here to enjoy those.
Should not be discouraging as a Red Sox fan. It's Matt McCarthy in for Maz tonight, and I think we all understand it. It's the odds, right? I mean, it's not feel. I mean, the contrast between Cora and Bloom, this week has been striking. Cora comes out yesterday and makes an argument that we should get greedy, and it shouldn't just be about making the third, getting the third wild card spot. We should think higher than that. Playing good baseball, he thinks they can maintain it. That's based on feel. That's based on Alex Cora being around his club and saying, you know what, maybe we're building something here. Maybe we have something. Give us some help. Everybody else is going to get help. We deserve help too, as much as everybody else. That's a manager saying that based on feel. And I agree with that. I've watched this team, and they're starting to put something together. I don't think it's entirely a fluke, and I'd like to see them support that. Compared to Craig Breslow, who comes out and it's tepid at best, because it's all based on the math and the formula and what it's going to be when we ultimately get to the trade deadline. He's not going to answer it today, because how could you answer it today? The data is incomplete. The data determined probability, as Alex Spear wrote over the weekend. Jimmy, we keep talking about the math. Do you know what the Red Sox odds are to make the playoffs right now, today, as we sit here June 27th? What are the Red Sox odds?
According to Baseball Reference, it's a 43% chance to make the postseason.
I have the Red Sox at Fangraphs at 39.9%. So let's split the difference and let's say it's a 41% chance. Have we ever asked whether the math is right?
I don't understand your question.
Shouldn't we ask if the math is right? You're basing your entire decision based on some data, some statistic, something like that, the math. What if it's bad math?
Like it was for the Braves a few years ago.
Yes. What if it's bad math? The Braves a few years ago, what were their chances of winning the playoffs or winning the World Series? It's minuscule.
It was like 1% for them to win the World Series.
Right, in June or whatever of that year.
At the trade deadline.
The math might be wrong. What if the math is wrong? We're basing everything based on this. I think the math is wrong. You want to say it's, Jimmy says it's a 43% chance to make the playoffs. Fangraph says it's a 39% chance to make the playoffs. I think it's higher than that. I think it's way higher than that. There are 3 teams in the American League right now, over 500, fighting for 2 wild card spots. It's the Red Sox, the Twins, and the Royals. 2 out of 3 will make it. It's a 67% chance. But 2 of those teams are in the same division. They're going to play each other. They're going to beat the hell out of each other. That increases the Red Sox odds. Let's be fair, all right? What if somebody from the field starts playing way better baseball and they get back into it? Houston is in 8th place right now. They're 3 games back of 7th place. They're at 40-40. So let's say there's another team in the field. What you're telling me, even with all this information, is the Red Sox chances are as low as 40%? Only 40%. You're in a playoff spot today. Yet the nerds tell me there's a 39 to 43% chance that the Red Sox make the playoffs. The math is bad. I think the numbers suck and they're wrong. And these are the numbers we're basing the entire future of the franchise on. What if some nerd forgot to carry the 2? Really? We're all going to base it on data and probabilities? The data-determined probability of making the playoffs? What was the data-determined probability of making the playoffs in March? It was way lower than 39%, I'll tell you that. It should be higher than it today. I look around the American League, I say the competition is weak. I say your 2 primary teams that you're competing with right now for 3 spots are in the same division, and I think you're just as good as them. Doesn't mean I think you're a great baseball team. I think you're a fine baseball team, but I think you're a team that's improving and getting better. We keep acting like the math is right. Nobody ever asks if the math is wrong. I think the math is wrong here. What Cornell genius came up with this? Craig Breslow at Yale. I think your math sucks, Craig. I do. 2 out of the 3 teams you're competing with right now? I mean, really, it's a 3-team race for 2 spots. Seems a little higher than 40% to me. 617-779-0985. Steve in New Hampshire. Hey, Steve.
Hey, how are you?
What's up?
Hey, the only reason why they hired Craig Breslow is because he's a butt-kissing puppet. He does everything they want, and that's what's going to cost the Red Sox. Cora's got this team bought into. They love to play for him. They're playing with heart, and he believes in them. And
Steve, your phone sucks. Yeah, your point is that, Breslow is just another guy in the same mold that, Chaim Bloom was in, and this is what John Henry and ownership wants. You're not entirely wrong about that. Wouldn't disagree with you. Justin in Shrewsbury. Hey, Justin.
Hey, Matt. Thanks for taking my call. So for Breslow to say, it's a credit to those guys for fighting hard and battling, it's a credit, you owe them something as well to go out and get them help. If they're clearly in a position where they can, exceed expectations or even make the playoffs, right? You owe it as a GM, as a franchise, as an owner. You owe it to the players, you owe it to the fans. Most importantly, to the players to kind of give them some help to get them, over the hump that they need. And once you get into the playoffs, anything can happen. I mean, we've just took care of the Yankees pretty well. Obviously they're our biggest rival. We'll run into them at some point eventually, but who knows if, you get hot in the playoffs, anything can happen and you can find yourself,
Justin, I think the biggest argument for adding at the deadline is what it means to the players, right? And you can say anybody can get hot, and you're totally right about that. I mean, I didn't think the Arizona Diamondbacks were going to be in the World Series last year. They won 84 games. In a 7-game series, they beat a Phillies team that, frankly, I'm sorry, was way better than them. I still don't understand how the Phillies lost that series last year, but they did. Find me the data-determined probability of the Diamondbacks beating the Phillies in the NLCS last year. I bet you it was very low. I bet you it was lower than 39%. But they did. That's why we play sports. That's why we play the games. And I think it's good for a young team if you add and you get to the playoffs and you learn a lesson. What if the Red Sox what if you add a starting pitcher and it, costs you a couple prospects, whatever it may be. But that pitcher helps you get to October. Maybe you lose your first round series. Is it still better that you were there? Is it better for the fan base that you were there? Of course it is. It gives you reason to believe in the future. Was making the playoffs in 2016 for the Red Sox a bad thing? After they fired, Ben Cherington and they brought in Dave Dombrowski and, they went out and, added, David Price. And, they went to the ALDS. They lost to Cleveland. They got swept by Cleveland. It wasn't very good. Was it better for that team that they went there? Because 2 years later, they won the World Series. They learned a lesson from that. I would say the same thing about this young team. If they go to the playoffs, and let's say they lose. Let's say, you aren't the Arizona Diamondbacks. It doesn't break your way or whatever. You lose in the first round. Is that still better than being the 8th place team in the American League? Which has essentially been the argument for a long time here. It's like, well, why would we invest in this team? They're not really going anywhere. You're not as good as the Orioles. You're not as good as the Yankees. Yeah, I agree. You're not. You're not as good as those teams. Does it help Jarren Duran? Does it help Tanner Houck to start a playoff game? What if Tanner Houck goes out there, has a good outing, you lose 3-2? Is that still good for Tanner Houck going into 2025? Of course it is. How about Brian Bayo? Would it be better for him to get the experience? I don't know if he'd start a playoff game the way he's pitching right now. Would it be better for him, though, to pitch in a playoff race? And you'll find out something about him. Maybe he'll learn something about himself. Maybe he'll overcome some of the issues that he's dealt with this year, which a lot of them feel mental to me. He runs into adversity and he struggles. Well, what if you run into adversity in a playoff race and you actually overcome it? You persevere. Are you a better pitcher and a better player as a result of that? The data doesn't quantify that. No, the data does not take that into account. The data determine probability of making the playoffs. You can't just go on forever and ever and ever and say, oh, you're not a World Series team, so, don't even bother. Maybe you should sell, maybe you should buy and sell. Oh, screw that. Go out and win some baseball games.Maybe it'll help you win some baseball games next year. Isn't that the goal here? Aren't we trying to win? 617-779-0985. How about Martin in Texas? Because I did mention Brian Bayo. Hey, Martin.
Hey, man. I just wanted to say that Cora announced that they're pushing back Bayo's start 2 days. And I think what happens after that is going to kind of determine how they do with the trade deadline and whatnot, because if he performs badly, I could totally see him getting sent down to just sort of figure it out and being replaced with Cooper Criswell. Now, if they don't end up doing that, then that'll tell you what they're going to do with the trade deadline. If they keep him up here and he's going to just continue to suck it up, then they're not going to care and they're not going to acquire any help.
Yeah, I mean, I would say Bayo has to work through it at the big league level. I mean, I don't think this is a Clay Buchholz back to Portland in 2008 type of situation. He hasn't been good, but eventually you got to learn through it at the big league level. He'd go to AAA, and I'm sure he'd be fine. But you got to listen. This is about being a young team. As I said, they're not perfect. Far from it. Far from it. They make mistakes. Some of their young players haven't been as good. Brian Bayo at the top of that list. Is being in a playoff race good or bad for him? That'd be my question to you. 617-779-0985. I have the player that you should trade for. If you do make a trade at all. And, listen, I don't think we should entirely jump to the conclusion that Craig Breslow is Chaim Bloom. He has done some things, minor things this year to try and improve the team in the moment, which indicates to you that he's at least a little bit more serious about trying to build a winner. If Chaim Bloom's still your general manager, Dominic Smith and Garrett Cooper aren't brought in here to try and keep the big league team afloat, because Bloom didn't give a damn about the big league team. Maybe, just maybe, Craig Breslow does a little bit. And if he does, I might have the guy for him to trade for. I'll explain who that is next and what you'd have to give up to get him. And I'm fascinated to know if you would give up the high cost to get this player that you saw this past week. We continue. It's McCarthy in from Az on the Baseball Hour.
just smoked one. And Toronto grabs a 6-2 lead here in the 7th inning as this one came apart in a hurry.
And the hanging breaking ball, big boys middle of the line. We talked about it with Devers when he hit the breaking ball out 440 feet. Right here's a hanging slider right in the middle. And you just don't get away with that with middle line guys, especially American League home run hitters.
This one traveled 471 feet.
Wow.
Holy cow. It had 5.5 seconds of hang time, and it went out at 113 miles an hour.
That's an easy one from our view, too, right off the bat. It was way above us.
6-2.
What a blast from Vlad Guerrero Jr., who very well might be available. I suppose it's kind of a ridiculous discussion at this point, given that we don't know if the Red Sox are going to buy or sell, given that Craig Breslow continues to indicate tepid interest at best in buying. That can change over the course of the next month if the Red Sox continue to play good baseball. I would hope it would change. But I think it's an interesting question. The Red Sox would have two big needs if they buy: starting pitching and a power right-handed bat. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. might be available. Would you trade for him? Simple question. Would you trade for him? I asked this on Twitter the other night, Jimmy. I think I got the appropriate level of response. I said, would you trade one of Marcelo Meyer, Roman Anthony, or Kyle Teal for Vladimir Guerrero Jr.? I believe it would take one of those to make the deal happen. Would you do that? 55% of respondents said yes. 45% of respondents said no. I think about 1,500 people participated if I were to go back and check. I think that's where it should be. It's close. I lean yes. I'm probably in the yes category on that, but it is very, very close. Would you, Jimmy?
Absolutely yes.
Why is that?
Because Vlad Guerrero is 26 years old.
25.
You could sign him to an extension that would be 10 years and whatever money. So for the next 8 to 10 years, your middle of the order, potentially, if you sign Casas, would be Devers, Guerrero, and Casas. And so that, to me, that's a great 2-3-4, 3-4-5, however you stack it up. But now you have superstars. You have marketing power. There's just so more to the investment with a guy like Vladimir Guerrero Jr., who's a second-generation player at age 26, who is going into his prime years and can hit the ball 470 feet out of Fenway Park without batting an eye.
The more I think about it, he's the perfect fit. He's exactly what they need.
And he's a generational name because he's second-generation athlete.
Yes. He's on the cover of MLB The Show, all of that. He's 25 years old. He is your biggest, one of your two biggest organizational needs, which is a stud right-handed power bat that you can slide between Devers and Casas. They don't have that anywhere in the organization. I mean, the thought of that is tantalizing. He is a star. The Red Sox need more star power. You would feel completely differently. Like all these calls that we get every single night on the baseball hour. We get calls from people complaining about ownership, complaining about the direction of the franchise. The Red Sox don't care anymore. You trade for Vladimir Guerrero Jr., those questions go away instantly. It's a statement. That's a statement trade. It's going to cost you a lot because he's under contract for 1.5 years. He has term. It's going to cost you a lot, but it's worth it. It's worth it. There are reasons against it, for sure. You wonder if he'd become dead weight, literally and figuratively. I do worry about his conditioning. He has not really reached his full potential. He had a great 2021. He's starting to get red hot now. But 2022, 2023, 2024 have not been anywhere as good as 2021. Gets paid $19 million. Sox probably don't want to pay that. They can afford to, but they probably don't want to pay that. And he's due a massive contract. Not to mention, too, you wonder about him blocking Devers from becoming a DH. He's actually a pretty good fielder. He's got a gold glove at first base, even at his size. But you wonder if you've got too many corner guys, does that prevent Devers from becoming a DH eventually? It's not automatic, but the more I think about it, it's exactly what they need. Star power, power hitter, built for Fenway. Feels like I'd have to look at his career stats at Fenway. I feel like he does a lot of damage here. Perfect swing for Fenway. I mean, he would hunt the monster. He's exactly what they need. And it's going to cost you. You don't have any pitching to give up, so it's going to be one of the big three. Meyer, Anthony, or Teal.
The odds, by the way, are that these big three, not all three of them work out to the way that you want them to.
Interesting. We always talk about the odds, but these prospect folks never seem to mention that. The nerds, holding on to all of these guys and hoarding these prospects, they never seem to mention what the actual odds are of these guys becoming bona fide big league studs. The best general managers, if you've got 3 prospects, keep 2 and trade 1. Let me just give you one more reason, and this is philosophical more than anything. If we're talking about trading one of Meyer, Anthony, or Teal, which we don't talk enough about, and we should. We should be applying pressure on this organization to trade one of them. Jimmy, what side of the plate do they all hit from?
That would be the left side.
How many left-handed hitters do the Red Sox have right now?
Too many.
A lot. And you're only going to have even more when these guys come up. So, okay, you believe Meyer, Anthony, and Teal are all going to be studs. Okay, so you've got Devers, Casas, Duran, Abreu, Meyer, Anthony, Teal. A lefty's going to destroy you. You can't have more than 4 or 5 lefties in a lineup. It's just the way it is. It's just baseball. You're going to run out of room. So wouldn't you want to trade one of those guys for an impact right-handed hitter?
Especially when said right-handed impact hitter is Vlad Guerrero. In 41 games at Fenway Park, 10 home runs, 41 RBIs, 348 batting average, a 1,054 OPS, 101 total bases.
Oh, my God. That's ridiculous. I knew it was good just because I've watched him play here, and he always, it's a perfect ballpark for his swing. How many middle infielders do you have right now?
Too many.
Next year, Meyer, Story, Valdez, Hamilton, York, Grissom. How many middle infield spots do you have, Jimmy, in a regular starting 9?
Oh, I believe it's 4.
On a baseball
infield
team.
spots is 4. I believe there's 2 in the middle.
There's 2 in the middle. Yeah. So you have 6 middle infielders right now who are going to be ready. Got to start trading guys. Like the whole thing.
Aren't you going to start losing people to Rule 5 soon?
Eventually, it's all been about the 40-man roster. Eventually, you need to start trading these guys. Meyer, Anthony, and Teal all have tremendous, tremendous value. Pick one. Send him to Toronto for Vlad Guerrero Jr. I would lean towards Meyer. Meyer's the most valuable. It means, not to say you can do a 1-for-1, but he's going to be the centerpiece of that deal. You probably don't have to give up much more than him. You keep Teal. Teal's my guy. I would pick, I love a catcher. Love a catcher. You already have Connor Wong, but I think you can have 2 catchers and be really successful, and I'd keep Anthony.
What about this alternative, Matt?
What?
If you're trading Mayer, why not see if you can get Bo Bichette?
Right-handed hitter. They need more of those. I would consider it, for sure. I mean, Vlad they don't need another middle infielder. They need a power DH guy. So I would lean towards Vlad. But would I have the discussion? Again, you're going to run out of spots for left-handed hitters, and you're going to run out of spots for infielders. So before you say this is crazy talk, maybe it's crazy talk in the fact that the Red Sox wouldn't do it, but it makes all the sense in the baseball world to do it. One of those guys should go for Vlad Guerrero.
But if you're the Red Sox organization and you hate superstars and you think that you'll have too many DHs, maybe Bo Bichette isn't quite the superstar, so he's less money, more affordable, and he's a middle infielder.
And he might be better than Marcelo Meyer might ever be. Again, that's the tough decision you have to make as a general manager. Right now, my favorite guy in the system is Teal. Somebody who has risen so fast. He was drafted last year. He's already in Portland. He should probably be in Worcester soon. He's a catcher. He's advanced. It is rare that catchers are this good, this young. I think that's special. I would not trade him. I would consider trading one of Anthony or Meyer to improve the team and get something that you don't have.
What if the cost is both, Matt, and that's all the cost is?
I don't do both.
You don't do both?
No, I don't do both. That's too much. I do one.
So if it's Anthony and Meyer for Guerrero, you say no. You're a hard no.
I say no on that. That's too much. Then the risks of Guerrero start to outweigh the cost. I trade one of them.
But if Guerrero's your 3-4 hitter for the next 10 years, I would take that chance.
I don't think it's going to take both, though. I don't.
I mean, remember when Dave Dombrowski traded for Chris Sale, and it was Yohan Moncada and Michael Kopech, and it's like, oh, you can't trade both of those. Those are your two top prospects. Who was right in that deal?
Dave Dombrowski.
And you know the other detail that Dave Dombrowski was right about? He kept Devers.
Yes, he did. He picked the right guy. He kept Devers. He also kept Benintendi over Moncada, which was a better choice at that time. This is what being a general manager is all about. You're not a good general manager because you hoard prospects and eventually those guys figure out how to play at the big league level. Some of Chaim Bloom's guys right now are figuring it out at the big league level. But as we just talked about, you got a roster crunch coming up in less than a year. So what good is all that surplus going to do you unless you start trading them, unless you start making the tough decisions, picking which guy to trade, picking which guy to keep. You 3 middle infielders, that's it. You got to trade 3 of them.
That's too many.
You could argue it's too many. I mean, I might keep David Hamilton as a backup because he can run and all. You want to go Story, Meyer, Hamilton? They're all lefties. Keep that in mind. It's time to start making some tough decisions. And it's time to start getting some real return for these prospects that do have value. But a good general manager is going to cash in on that value and make
and
a
you
hard
don't have
decision.
one.
In fairness, Jimmy, we don't know yet.
I have a take to give today.
Okay, all right. You give a take today. Craig Breslow sucks. My take today is I'm going to give Craig Breslow at least one trading deadline before I determine whether or not he sucks. There are some concerning things. I'll grant you that. But I'm not willing to go that far. We continue. A lightning round, a baseball hour lightning round next. Never like to keep Jimmy Stewart late when I'm in for Maz. It's my way to curry favor with him. So what we need to do is we need to go through your phone calls quickly. It's a lightning round. I'm just asking you to be expedient, if possible. How about Alex in Connecticut on the Vlad Guerrero discussion? Alex.
Yeah, hey. Yes, to absolutely get Vlad. That would do my heart well. I haven't been to Fenway for over 2 years, but seeing that guy in a Sox uniform, I'd go up to Fenway just to watch him play and hit the ball in the park.
Star power, Alex. Star power. It matters. Biggest star in a Red Sox uniform is Alex Cooper last night. It's the biggest star the Red Sox have put out there in a Red Sox jersey since they traded Mookie Betts. Star power matters. Vlad Guerrero Jr. would give you that. Sean in Colorado. Hey, Sean.
How's it going?
Hey.
I'm very close to you, but I lean on the no side for the Vlad trade. I think it would be an excess of DHs. And also, with this team, I believe does need support and help, and I'm absolutely on board with doing that. But I want to trade the excess. I don't want to go all in because I'm not sure if this is a World Series team. I'd love the playoffs, though.
Okay, and that's a totally realistic take, Sean. You say, you're concerned about his conditioning. You're concerned about having too many DHs. Yes, I agree. Guerrero did win a Gold Glove at first base. I just don't know how long that's sustainable, given his conditioning. And if you want to say you don't, think you're ready for the biggest move yet, reasonable take. I get that. But you need to start trading some of the excess. You're going to run out of room. Otherwise, you're going to get nothing for these guys. Don and Carver. Hey, Don.
Yeah, vitality and brotherhood. These guys have been playing together. They're close to the same age, and they have a manager, Alex Cora, who recognizes these attributes. Thanks, Matt.
All right, sounds good, John. Don, I agree. John, I know you, Don. Don and Carver, the best. Yes, Alex Cora recognizes that this team is growing. There are going to be ugly moments. There are going to be some bad nights. Tuesday was a perfect example of that. They didn't catch the ball. They didn't field the ball. At times, it's going to look bad. But other times, I think the majority of the time, it's going to look the way it's looked in the last 3 weeks. I believe in the 3-week sample size over the course of the full season sample size. Because I think this team has gotten better. I think they're growing. I think that's what happens with young baseball players. You give them opportunities eventually, they're going to fail, and maybe they'll succeed. Jarren Duran is a perfect example of that. Fail, now he's succeeding. David Hamilton, who saw this coming with David Hamilton? Fail, succeed. Tanner Houck said plenty of ups and downs, a lot of failures, major leagues, minor leagues. Go back and look at some of his minor league failures. There's a guy who's consistently persevered and is now becoming one of the better pitchers in baseball, which I didn't see coming. I didn't see David Hamilton coming. I didn't see Jarren Duran coming. I didn't see this, but eventually you have to use your eyes and say, they're starting to put this together. And I don't think it's a fluke. Final take, Jimmy. You think this last 3 weeks have been a fluke before I let you get the hell out of here?
No, I don't think so at all. I think this is closer to what they are. I think that they were a 500 team, and they might come back to it, but the fact that they've beaten good competition in this run makes me want to believe in them.
500 might get you to the playoffs. It's going to get you close.
I think you need 84 wins, 85 wins.
The Arizona Diamondbacks won 84 games. They went to the World Series last year.
So essentially, Craig Breslow's assignment between now and the trade deadline, find a right-handed bat, find a starting pitcher, and find a reliever. Add those 3 things.
I'd love to see it.
It won't happen, but that's his assignment.
Hey, trade for Vladdy. Why not? Get you excited about something.
Vladdy's ass is a wagon.
Oh, that thing doesn't quit, Jimmy. It doesn't quit. Is that Nick Cattles over there in the corner? Nick Cattles. Last time you were on the night show, you said you hated working nights. You're back. Nick Cattles back in the building. What do you got coming up?
Desperate times call for desperate measures.
What do you got coming up, Cattles? Celtics. Nick Cattles.
Best is he didn't hear me say that.
Night show Nick Cattles. Never thought I'd see the day. Good to see you, bud. All right, I'm McCarthy. I'm in for Maz again tomorrow. I'll see you.
From the Town Fair Tire Studios.
NBA draft continuing. Celtics taking Anton Watson out of Gonzaga.